Everybody, I'm Mike the Man. Welcome to my channel and thank you for watching. So today I'm going to do something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. And that is I'm going to revisit an interview done by JLR Investigates 10 months ago. I consider this to be the best video out there. The best interview in the case of Sebastian Rogers. Again, you guys are often telling me, watch this, watch that. I don't. I don't watch anything about the case. I watched part of Nina's and I watched this one a long time ago, and that's it. I don't have interest in watching commentaries. I don't have interest in other people, in anybody's series, except what you guys share with me in the comment section. I don't go on any panels. I don't listen to any lives. I don't need to hear people's guesses. And when I see the deceptive titles of many of these videos, I frankly always wonder, why do people not see through it that a lot of these so-called new tips or new leads are fabrications. They're taken out of thin air. They want you to tune in. I will try to make more videos now, people. I'm now getting to the point where I'm saying, you know what? Even when I don't feel like I'm ready because I see what other people are watching. It's disappointing, but I will do my part to keep you guys busy also with each other and doing something that includes looking into the case through the eyes of the actual statements, which are much more reliable than anybody's guesses, because that is what has been happening. That's part of what drags this case out like crazy. And police doesn't see a need to embarrass themselves and show everybody how they messed up in the very beginning, because they see a bunch of people arguing and yapping and talking about, well, at least the talk about the private investigators over. But I'll get to this in a minute again, because once again, you need to shield yourself from that. Your energy. You cannot allow yourself to simply go with the gossip. It is detrimental to your understanding. It'll cloud you. It'll cloud me. I was added to this really disgusting and insane Twitter chat group a few months ago. And they called themselves Team Sebastian. All it was, there was a few green hearts, the rest was just gossiping and talking about their private investigator and joking. And Sebastian's name was not mentioned for like 25 posts. And they're using Sebastian's name to vent about their exes and about everything in the planet. And I'm telling you, if I stayed in there and actually read any part of it, I would not be able to do what I'm doing. I would miss every single clue that there is. And this video is not about it's not about statement analysis, but it is very important for me to share with you a few things that the neighbor of the Proudfoot said. And JLR investigates Sebastian Rogers, the Proudfoot's neighbor, speaks exclusive interview. That's the name of the video if you guys want to look it up. So let's listen a little bit. Ah, let's start with the commercial I don't get paid for.
That is the biggest misconception. Here we go with the whole light thing, right? Is this is where we're going? So,
one more thing first. The very first day, the dogs. You saw dogs out there.
oh yes, absolutely.
Going a specific direction or area? Did you see them centered around a certain area, or did they pick up any scent?
Okay, so there was no scent that was picked up from their house to anywhere.
Did you hear that?
Centered around a certain area, or did they pick up any scent?
Okay, so there was no scent that was picked up from their house to anywhere.
There was no scent that was picked up from their house to anywhere. The whole storyline that Chris Proudfoot talked about, how the dog supposedly was given a clothing item of Sebastian's on the porch. He sniffed and he walked. He followed a scent to the construction site, to the retention pond. That was his storyline. He even called the narc diver team when they volunteered to give them a fake scenario, people. A fake scenario. That's exactly what he sold them. To sidetrack them. Because he wanted to sell his claim that, or Katie actually, she's the one who came up with it, that Sebastian walked from the porch and he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked to the retention pond. The dogs picked up on something somewhere. So what I'm thinking is, since they did not pick up any scent from their house, the dogs were taken around by the handlers around the area. And here's what happened when they hit the construction site.
However, and my kids were with the handler and the canine and actually watched. He followed them all through the construction zone. And one of my kids actually saw one of the dogs take the handler to one of the retention ponds. And not only did he go to the retention pond, he ran to it and jumped in it. And the handler had to go and get him and take him out of the water and then dry him off. And my son looked over the handler and said, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that before." He looked at me and said, "He's never done that before." And my son said, "Why did he just jump in that?" He said he was following a scent. And then the other
on that, did they go in the water? Did they take scuba divers or anything in there?
Supposedly, when I told Seth that when I met him at the most recent vigil, he said they drained the pond twice and nothing. But not only did I see that, but when on day 3, I think it was Wednesday, when National Guard came through and they had their dogs. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they were all up and down through the neighborhood. That's why whenever I said, the police aren't doing enough, I have some of my own personal thoughts about that, but I will tell you right now.
Okay, let's skip this.
We had the Sumner County Sheriff's Office. We had it brought theirs, so we were flooded. Okay, so back to the whole dog.
Let's do the trash, because the trash is what everyone is curious about. The time the trash picks up, and then in reference to the lights, we're going to talk about the 3 a.m., 3:10 a.m. lights. Let's talk about the trash. What do you know?
So our trash gets picked up by J.E. McMurtry Disposal, has for many, many, many years. They used to, a few years back, they would pick up around 6:30-ish, but then the bus was coming through and it was making it hard for them to come through with the bus, and all the kids were out and it was just chaotic. So they switched it, and now they go down my street about 5:30, 5-ish, between 5:15-ish, 5:20, something like that, every Monday morning. That's going down my hill, though. That's not when they come in and they're going around it. That's when they're coming back down. So, yeah.
I mean, that's an extra, 20 minutes? How long does it take for the trash truck guy to go through the whole entire neighborhood?
And the other misconception is a lot of people are saying that they have to hand dump the trash bin in there. They don't. It's a new truck. They have an arm, and it does it for them. So that...
Okay, guys. let's move forward because this is going to get good now. As you can see, this is what I've been referencing for quite some time, that the dog did not follow the scent from the house, from the property of the Bauerfoots, the Proudfoots, to anywhere. Because they loaded Sebastian into a truck and drove off. The dogs lost the scent right then and there at the home of the Proudfoots, in my opinion. There was no scent that was picked up from their house to anywhere. Neighbor Bobby's son volunteered to walk around with the handlers, to assist them, to just hang out. It's exciting, maybe to help, whatever people's motives are. I don't really know. I would have done that when I was a kid. I would have been like, dude, I want to check this out. I want to see how these dogs work. I'll help. So they must have, if they didn't follow a scent, taken the dogs on their own. And they took the dog to the construction site. And then the dog let the handler, not only led the handler to the retention pond, he ran to it and he jumped right into the pond. This is not an accident or coincidence, people. Something is in the pond, was in the pond that they had gotten rid of. And I think it was the sleep aid that contributed to Sebastian falling and eventually dying. Because what do people get rid of? The murder weapon. He is already, so I ran back into the house. Katie told us that. That was her embedded confession to tell us. And Chris said everything is still on the table. What's on the table? All the medicine. When she said he came out of his room to say good night, mommy, good night, puppies, she didn't have to say he came out of his room. That's telling us he was not in his room. He was downstairs and she fixed him something to make sure he was gonna go to sleep. I don't care what you're doing. You're going to sleep. And now something very interesting that will also highlight some of what we have previously examined. Let me forward this. And where we go. Okay, I start right here. What is this, man? Another commercial I got paid for.
The story gets totally misconstrued. I don't know. Again, third party. I'm hearing this from another third party source, so I'm gonna trust this lady. She's a good friend of mine. There's no reason why she would lie. But she said when Katie they had gotten home from Texas Roadhouse, took the trash out, so on and so forth. Sebastian was in his room. She was in the kitchen, I guess, getting whatever done. And from her house, she's close enough to where she can see from the Ring camera, like the lights inside, because it's dark. So I mean, if you have lights on, you can see it. And so she said that she could see the lights in the house around 10 or so. Then Katie told her that Sebastian was in her room. She was in the kitchen. She said, "You need to go to bed." And he said, "Okay." And she goes in the living room and does whatever, watches TV. She says she was studying. I don't know. Whatever, doesn't matter. She was in the living room for whatever reason. And she told my neighbor that she fell asleep. And
say that again. You broke up. Say it again. You broke up.
She this funk. And she yelled across the house and said, "Sebastian." And he said, "Yes, Mom." And she said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm fine. I'm good. Go to bed." And she said, "Okay." So she gets up, and my neighbor said you can actually see his light go off, her walking across the house, her light go off, and then a silhouette come up to the window for a minute. And then everything just goes black.
What time was that again? Because you cut out.
I'm sorry, I know my son was calling me. Okay, so she woke up around 11:30 is what she told my neighbor, that she woke up about 11:30, and apparently he was still up. But I find it odd because my thought is, and again, none of my business. I just think, okay, put yourself in that position. If I have a child who's got special needs and I hear a thump, I'm going to walk into my child. No, let me put it this way. My kids are all very healthy and normal. I'm very blessed to have very healthy kids. But if it's 11 o'clock or 11:30 at night and my kid has to be up at 6 the next morning, I'm going to be in their room yelling at them and taking their electronics away.
Her referring to her own kids as very normal is not really, well, I'm not going to get into this. There are a couple of things actually where this neighbor, some comments that she makes that really, again, she's not being deceptive, but she has a certain way and a certain outlook on life that shines through. And there will be another example in a minute. But did you guys catch this? Did you guys catch that? She didn't specify exactly when the lights went out. If it was 10, if it was 9, when exactly. She only says that Katie mentioned something about 10, but she actually said 9 in one interview, and then she heard a third at 10. So the lights went out upstairs, and then they went downstairs, they went out. She saw a silhouette, maybe Katie's shadow. But then at 11:30 p.m., the lights were on in Sebastian's room. I hope I'm understanding this correctly. She's talking a little bit fast for me and overlaps, and of course, she got cut out because her son tried to call her, even though he knows she's in the middle of an interview. Jesus. These things say a lot to me already because I have too much of an eye for detail. You know, if I told my daughter I'm gonna be using my phone to be in an interview and you call me during the interview, how old is the son, anyways? Let me go back a little bit to clarify a few things for you guys. I want you to hear this.
Around 10 or so, then Katie told her that Sebastian was in her room, she was in the kitchen. She said, "You need to go to bed." And he said, "Okay." And she goes in the living room and does whatever, watches TV. She says she was studying. I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. She was in the living room for whatever reason. And suppose she told my neighbor that.
You see, I don't know when Katie found out that he was on the floor and hit his face. Was it at 10 when she heard the thud? Did she go upstairs? Or was it later, around 11:30? We'll get to it.
She fell asleep and.
Say that again. Broke up. Say it again.
No,
You
not
broke
just
up.
breaking up.
This funk, and she yelled across the house and said, "Sebastian," and he said, "Yes, Mom," and she said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm fine, I'm good, go to bed." And she said, "Okay." So she gets up, and my neighbor said you can actually see his light go off, her walking across the house, her light go off, and then a silhouette come up to the window for a minute, and then everything just goes black.
What time was that again?
One more time.
And said, "Sebastian," and he said, "Yes, Mom," and she said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm fine, I'm good, go to bed." And she said, "Okay." So she gets up, and my neighbor said you can actually see his light go off, her walking across the house, her light go off, and then a silhouette come up to the window for a minute, and then everything just goes black.
Mm-hmm.
What time was that again? Because you cut out.
I'm sorry, I know my son was calling me. Okay, so she woke up around 11:30 is what she told my neighbor, that she woke up about 11:30, and apparently he was still up. But I find it odd because my thought is, and again, none of my business. I just think, okay, put yourself in that position. If I have a child who's got special needs and I hear a thump, I'm going to walk into my truck. No, let me put it this way. My kids are all very healthy and normal. I'm very blessed to have very healthy kids. But if it's 11 o'clock or 11:30 at night and my kid has to be up at 6 the next morning, I'm going to be in their room yelling at them and taking their electronics away and telling them, go to bed now. That I would be walking in my kid's room. Even where my kids are now, healthy and average children, whatever, no problems. If I heard a thunk, I'm probably still going to go in their room and ask, like, what in the world was that? I wouldn't just stay, but, hey, maybe she trusted him. Maybe she thought it was no big deal. I don't know, whatever. But that's what she told my neighbor. And then she goes to bed.
11:30 though. See, that information is not really out there. We keep hearing 10 p.m. kind of deal.
Yeah.
Put them to bed. Hear the thump. Are you okay? Good night. 10 p.m.
Right.
But this is what she told a neighbor.
That's right. And when I asked my neighbor, so she told me this Monday. And then when the sheriff's office came by our house to do the same door knocking thing and walking around and whatever, I asked the sheriff, I said, let me ask you a question. And he's like, what's that? And I said, I know early on investigation, they actually were talking to us. Like day 1 and 2, they were talking to us. So they were giving us information. They were telling us kind of what they were going to do and whatever. And then after about a week of it, they just shut down and never would talk again.
Right.
The day that the TBI came in, that was it. No more discussion. It's shut down. We're not talking about it. You're just going to have to be in the dark.
This is now where we will get an idea of what is really going on behind the scenes in this case.
So, but this day 2, when the sheriff's office came in, the state troopers came in. Still don't know why state troopers got there. Haven't figured that one out yet. I don't know why state troopers would be there.
Okay, shut up,
state
continue.
troopers came in, actually, they came into my driveway because they were rinsing their shoes off. They had gone into the construction area and his boots were all muddy. And so he and my son were rinsing his shoes off. And I looked at him and I said, let me ask you a question. I said, like, what's that? And I said, if you're falling asleep in the living room and your kid walks out the front door, wouldn't you have heard that? And he was like, not only would I have heard that, but I would have jumped.
Oh yeah, stupid commercial on the wrong spot. That's JLR's commercials, not mine.
Heard that, but I would have jumped up with my gun in my hand to figure out who's coming in my house.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's the thing is, like, she falls asleep on the couch and her kid just walks at the door. But then when I asked my neighbor about that again, called her the next day, I'm like, okay, explain this to me. This is what you said. I don't understand that. And she said, oh, well, she woke up and then heard the thump and that kind of thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, it goes with all that in the evening time. At the same time, like you said, no evidence that any neighbors or anyone seen that he actually returned home that day. And then we also have those lights. It's just a mystery in a sense because there's mystery. Someone asked him, go ahead.
I'm just going to say.
My question is, when Chris was not there, where did Katie usually sleep? Did she just sleep downstairs? Did she sleep wherever? Did she, I don't know. Did she adjust her story? There seem to be a lot of adjustments here. So maybe she later on tweaked her story to tell everybody, I got up, and I went upstairs. So that means I couldn't have heard anything if he decided to just get up, walk downstairs, open the door, and walk out barefoot.
Those were not trash trucks.
I concur. But why did authorities say it doesn't have any evidentiary value?
I asked that when I called the lead detective, and I flat out told him that I know the neighbor. I've seen the video footage from the very beginning before it was edited. She told me with her own mouth, looking at it herself, there are 2 separate occasions, car, then truck. Why is that? We've had it. He argued with me and told me that he had it broken down. The Secret Service looked at it and they confirmed that in fact it was a trash truck. And I said, I'm telling you, it was not. He said, well, I'm not going to say I argue with you. I was like, okay.
Wow. Somebody said in the chat, any video footage of Katie searching for Sebastian that morning? Like, do they have any? Since you have a neighbor that has a Ring camera, did any cameras pick up Katie?
You see, all of this information has gotten lost more or less in the last 10 months. Why? Because people got sidetracked with other stuff. This is essential, people. And you can watch it on JLR Investigates. Watch the whole video and get an idea of what she is saying.
Actually, out there searching that morning before.
If she, oh, you mean before all the police got there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the neighbor that was leaving to go take her well, actually, the neighbor's camera did pick up her walking around her house.
Really? So she walked around her house?
Yeah, because in the neighbor, if you're looking to her house, the neighbor to the left of them, that the wife came out and was actually looking. There's like a little like a wood door underneath the house. What do you call it underneath the house? The crawl space. They actually opened up that door and were looking in the crawl space together. And so they were looking. But as far as outside of the neighborhood, I've never seen them. And they've never, no, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I asked my kids, and my kids said they had never seen her, never seen him. They did see Seth was out there a couple of times with everybody. He was at the command post. I have a good friend that was there in the command post, and she confirmed that he was at the command post. But I asked her, I said, did you see?
You see, these are the main points that I wanted to make. That it's wrong that the dog followed a scent. And there was something in the pond. And they should have taken water samples and analyzed them. But if there were pills, they probably didn't equally dissolve yet. And that's what the dog picked up on. He picked up Sebastian's scent on the pills that are in the pond. Something had been gotten rid of in there, equally dissolved. And they drained it a second time? Okay, they drained it a second time. But did they take water samples then? Did they think about that? Or did they just say, well, this must be one of those 1% times that something isn't going well? And by the way, of course, Chris Proudfoot immediately wants to say 25% of the times the dogs. Honestly, I don't want to even get into this stupidity. I am interested in what Katie says and what somebody reliable tells me about what happened actually that night. So the lights were on in Sebastian's room at 11:30 p.m. Right. When did we see the lights video? Where a car pulled up for 3 to 5 minutes, or maybe 5 minutes? It was 3:10, right? How long does it take to get from Memphis to Hendersonville? 3 hours and what? It aligns pretty well. So at 11:30, maybe Katie figured out, oh my God, maybe he was still alive, barely alive. And she called. And he was still on the phone with Chris. And he said, I'll be right there. I'm going to leave my phone. It was probably her idea. Leave your phone on the charger down there. And then what did he do? Who did he communicate with? Did he have a burner phone? You know what? They dropped the ball already within the first 3 days and couldn't get back into a real investigation. Even though they told us everything, there was a 180-degree turn in the investigation. They never actively went back into it, and they probably couldn't get the right search warrants that they wanted. They knew what is happening. They know what's going on. They know. But, you know,
confirmed that he was at the command post, but I asked her, I said, did you see Katie or Chris or the Bowers talks? And she said, no, never saw any of them. But then again, she said, but I mean, law enforcement did ask them to stay home in case he came home or called. So there's that.
Do you think law enforcement exhausted the whole area? Like, do you think they did a thorough search of the entire neighborhood and the streets along Long Hollow Pike and the school? Do you think they?
Oh yeah. Oh, I definitely. I mean, I watched it with my own eyes. They were deep in. They were climbing in the trenches and looking in the sewage areas. And then they had dogs everywhere. They had drones everywhere. The question is, what are they doing with whatever evidence they collected, and what are they doing with the surveillance cameras? Because what I'm told that neighbors saw, they're denying.
They're denying.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Why is that?
Exactly. I don't know. That was what I asked. I have no idea.
See, what I find interesting, Miss Bobby, is, I was up there.
In my opinion, the TBI knows how badly the sheriff's office messed up. And they said, listen, we're going to have to do either an investigation and it's going to make you guys look real bad, but also maybe it'll make us look bad. Why don't we just see if everybody forgets about it? They don't want to hear about the evidence.
What, a week and a half later, and then we were searching on that federal property, and there was a dog hit, and law enforcement didn't even go out there to look.
Right.
At all. It's as if they didn't even care that there could be. I would think that they would. Look, it seems like they've already made up their mind or have a conclusion of what happened to Sebastian.
Absolutely. JLR got it better than any of the others, by the way, that so many people are watching. He got it right in the very beginning. These people, they know what happened. They're not going to be able or willing to prove it. And they simply don't want to look into any direction other than the one that...
That is exactly how I have felt since the first week. Literally the first week. Within day, I mean, a lot of people would get on Facebook and, belittle our neighborhood and yell at us, like, why aren't you guys out looking? And what?
Within 3 days, right? It started probably day number 4. Day number 4, that's when it started. Okay, let's hear here.
Why don't you guys have signs? And why don't you have, if I was in that neighborhood, I would flood it with green. And yeah, but you haven't been violated, and you were...
I agree and I disagree. Yes, comments like, I would flood it with green hearts. No, people, we need to look and actively look for him and look in the right direction and put the right pressure on law enforcement. That's the only thing we can do. Green hearts in the neighborhood ain't gonna do anything. And I've said it before. I had people on my timeline before. They post green hearts and then they gossip for hours and hours. And they love to talk about the private investigator. They talk about anything. And you know what has happened? Some of my most brilliant friends even, they got sidetracked by that too. Suddenly they're talking about complete nonsense. And all it takes is for somebody to put something out there and they share it. No, we cannot do that because this is the most important thing, is to find the right information, and you don't find it when your blinders are on, when you look into the wrong directions. After 4 days or so, that's when they realize we messed up and we cannot get back to it. We didn't use luminol. All of the things we should have done, we didn't do. And now, when did they lawyer up, by the way? When did Katie and Chris lawyer up? And they couldn't get back into it. And Chris knows it. That's why he's so confident. That's why he says, nope, no evidence whatsoever. And stay away from my family. These are sensitive areas. Let's see a little bit more. And yeah, so I agree with her that every neighbor there knows Sebastian is missing. You don't need flyers in that neighborhood. Yeah, I do agree with it. But she's also being a baby in other times about people coming by, people disturbing their peace. Yeah, I bet you if one of your children was missing, you wouldn't say that. You wouldn't say, stay away from our neighborhood, please. No, you would invite this attention. You would like it. You would want it. You would be thankful for it. So I'm always looking at both sides, people, no matter what. And when I get messages from people, I can immediately tell if there's an agenda or if there is any kind of deception going on. And that's involuntary. It's not me looking for it, it's just something that hits me. The same way that you guys get hit by certain statements when you come across them. You just see them and you read, you see a paragraph, and all of a sudden, bam, you zoom in on 5 or 6 words and you say, something is off with this statement, something isn't right. It doesn't read right, it doesn't flow right, it doesn't read like something that I or anybody I know would say. And there's a reason for that. So if you guys, anybody, think about for 1 or 2 minutes now about any statement you have seen in the last year, be it about this case or be it about any other case, or something in your personal life, an email you've received maybe from somebody that you would like to figure out. And I'm challenging you guys. Write the statement down. Copy it into the comment section here. Give us a little bit of an insight. Share with us as much as we need to know, or share absolutely nothing. But simply share a statement. You can tell us from whom, or you don't even have to tell us if you don't want to. And see if you can analyze each other's statements. You see, this will be in my private section. Okay, for now, I will have it out here. If you guys can do that, if you're willing to do that, think about that for a second and put it down there. And look around if you can see, if you can analyze something from somebody else.
Who were a part of this, where you had hundreds of cars a day driving up and down and taking videos and pictures of your house and stopping and asking.
Yeah, you're a poor baby and your kids are normal. I already got your drift. So I got that. Thank you for giving us the information. I appreciate that very much. But in this case, I'm not interested in her opinion. You know, poor baby. A boy is missing. Oh my God, I'm being bothered. All these cars.
New questions and the news reporters, being out front of your house and.
But you already told us in a different part you're already hiding in your house because you're so scared of Chris Proudfoot. Because you don't want to get involved. Now that part I didn't play to you guys because there are many parts within this interview where she's just, that make me pretty sick actually. When people are cowardly, I get extremely sick. Well, we don't want to get involved, so we're just kind of hiding. She even says we are hiding because Chris got aggressive with her and her son. Wow. So now, why don't you're hiding anyways? What is the problem if you have TV news cameras there? Who cares? It's not going to be for forever. Jesus, man. People.
You
Stop using ChatGPT like
Come on.
everyone else and do this instead. To the men over 50 who don't know how to use AI.
I'm over 50.
Tomorrow,
questions and the news reporters, being out front of your house, and you don't have.
Cry me a river.
You don't understand where we are, and we just.
Oh my God.
We just want to just have some peace and some privacy. We are looking. We're out there. We're asking questions. We're talking to each other. We're on social media. We hang out Friday.
I don't think you're looking in the right direction, girl. Because you're too scared to look in the right direction. That's what you. Maybe I will find this part and play it to you guys before how Chris actually intimidated her. I will look at it. Let me first see if there's something else.
Whatever. We're just not. We don't. Why do we need a sign when we're in the neighborhood? I mean, we live here, for heaven's sakes. Why do we need a sign? We know what's going on. If you drive through here, this neighborhood belongs to him. Why do we need a sign to say look for him? But anyway, I feel like from the very beginning, it was a massive search effort. But I just don't understand what they did with, if they found anything, what they did with it. Why are they trying to act like the footage, did they find anything on the footage? From what I'm being told from my neighbors that saw stuff on the footage, and I asked them and they want to deny it, they want to argue with me. Why are they? And then when the TBI came and actually walked into my house, sitting in my living room couch, and interviewed me, and I told them what I had heard and whatever, and then after that, he gave me his card and said, I promise you, I had 12 people every day for about 3 weeks from random places. I'm talking Canada, I'm talking UK, I'm
so sorry that your little world has been opened up a bit by an event that, it's maybe more important than your little life.
Hawaii, Puerto Rico, they were trying to get into our private group. Why do you need to be in our private group? Why do you need to be in our neighborhood group?
This is somebody who has no life, seriously, and who doesn't want a life. Because who cares? People try to get in your group, then you don't let them in. I mean, anyways.
Just wanting to know stuff? I don't know. But I mean, we had they were coming out of the woodworks trying to get a piece of the information. But they just shut down. And every time I would send the TBI agent, I sent the story about what happened to my son and I, and said I had it on, video, whatever. And I said, do you want to see this? And, he didn't even respond to me. He didn't even respond and say, I will let you know, hold on to that. Nothing. I didn't even get a response from him.
Weird.
I called.
It seems as if they already know something and everything else in their mind is irrelevant.
They already know. They know. Trust me, they know. So to those of you who asked me if I would send my analyses to the TBI now, I think, this is, no matter from what angle you look at this. And of course, it's harder for us because we have to go through the statements. But they are actually on the ground. They were there. They saw what they saw. They know things and they don't reveal it. Even that stupid video from the private instigator who, that was meaningless. But yeah, they have all of that. They just take it and then they say, okay. And they don't give any feedback. They stonewall everything.
That's how I felt. That's how I feel. I can't prove it. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's how I feel. And that's what a lot of us feel like. I mean, a lot of us feel like I had 4 or 5 of my neighbors come over to my house one day, and we sat in my house and talking about all this and kind of sharing stories and stuff of what we feel. And we all feel like something is going on. Something isn't right.
Miss Bobby, somebody in the chat asked if when you had that neighborhood vigil for Sebastian, were the Proudfoots invited?
Oh yeah, it was all over our Facebook page.
So they knew.
Absolutely. Well, if they were we had planned it a week before, so it's not like it was last minute, throw it together. It was, a matter of fact, one of the neighbors that helped me organize it, she actually had posted it on her profile, like just on her as a posting, and just said, I'd love to have a vigil. Let me know if anybody is doing one. And I messaged her and said, hey, why don't we do this in our neighborhood? That way, the family can come as well, and it can just be our private neighbors. And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. So I put it on the Facebook page as a post. I tagged her in it, and I said, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is where we're going to be. And then several people posted asking what time. We kind of kept going back and forth about what day, what time, and whatever. So did we go to their door and knock on their door and personally invite them? No, but we didn't do that with anybody. And we had a big group show up.
And they would have. They knew it. One was existing. Instead, you said they brought two representatives, family members.
That's the other thing is that's the other thing is for a fact they knew because they sent the family.
Yeah. What did the family say? Like who with the people that you said that came? Uncle and aunt, right? Uncle and aunt. They said.
Yes.
What did they say anything? Did they talk? They
didn't really talk much. They just kind of stood there and listened to us, introduce ourselves, and we went around the circle. It was quite a big circle, and went around the circle, and everybody, said their prayer and whatever. And then afterwards, we just kind of said, hey, do you guys need anything? And we said, do you need food? Can we set up a food train for you? Or, is there, do you need anything? And they both said, oh,
okay, that's not very interesting, but I hope.
We're fine. Don't worry
Wait a
about
minute.
us. We're good. We got plenty of support.
Does somebody asked in the chat, does the Proudfoots have secure?
Okay, the security thing, yeah. Oh, I don't think this is so interesting, but I want to hear this part.
Does the Proudfoots have security? Did the neighbor, do you guys know if they had, because Katie worked at Brinks, right? Or Brinks security system?
That was the very first thing I asked my neighbor when she told me that Sebastian is on the spectrum. And I said, hold on a minute. Doesn't she work for Brinks? And she said, yes. And I said, she has a special needs child. She works for Brinks. Does she not have security or locks or some kind of like a safety, something to keep him from coming out? And she said, not that I'm aware of. Now, the people before them, I do not believe they had security. They were elderly couple, so I don't even know if they cared. But apparently they didn't, because then Brinks came afterwards and installed. And I know that for a fact because she called me and said, well, they're getting security now. And I think Chris said that was because they felt like they were being threatened and all that kind of stuff, which I can't prove or deny, whatever. That's up to them. That's their business. But from what I understand, they did not have anything before that.
Okay.
So, interesting. Very, very interesting. Has the Proudfoots been back at their home? Like, are they there?
She has been. I think she went back to work because she's been home and her van comes and goes.
One thing JLR also did, he surprised the Bauer Soxes when they went by the house when Chris and Katie were out of town, actually. I liked what he did. So let me hear this one.
This other neighbor has a Ring camera, and I said yes, and she's the one that saw the silhouette in the window and the lights in the house go on and off and whatever. She's like, but that doesn't make any sense, because if that house is located here, how can she have...
Okay, this is the last part. Sorry about this, people, but I want to play to you the part where she had a confrontation supposedly with Chris Proudfoot, allegedly, according to her.
Seen over here, and I'm like, okay, go back up the street and I'll show you. So we went back up the street to show him where that house was versus this and all the whole thing. And as we were coming back up, we kind of stopped. Now, this is my neighborhood. I'm not a suspicious person. This is my neighborhood. I should be able to do whatever I want to, right? So I stop, or he stops a little bit. I'm pointing at houses out, and we drive out, and I said, Sean, I said, honey, we got to go home. And he's like, why? And I said, because somebody's standing at their front door. He was like, oh, crap. And so, and I did not, God honest truth, I never meant to upset anybody. It was truly just me trying to figure out what's going on. Never meant to upset anybody. Turn around, Stafford. I'm coming back to...
You never meant to upset anybody, yeah. But you're getting upset when people drive through your street. But you have business being there and driving in front. No, I'm glad you did it, but... Ooh, I don't like what I hear sometimes.
Down, and Chris is... Now, mind you, I've never met this man. Never seen him before. I wouldn't even know who he is. Matter of fact, I thought he was law enforcement. Stands in the middle of the street and puts his hand out and stops, just like this. And I was like, oh my gosh, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And I'm thinking it's law enforcement. I'm like, oh crap.
Why are you scared if you don't do anything? If you didn't mention to upset, why are you scared?
We're about to get in trouble because they're going to think that we're looking for this kid or something. So roll down the window, and he comes around.
What's wrong with that? Sorry, guys, but this is... What is wrong with that? What is wrong with looking for Sebastian? Why would there be anything wrong with that? Or people, reporters coming to your area to help get his picture out. Now, I have said before, I consider it to be useless because I believe he's already passed away and his body is somewhere within 10 miles. And probably it went up into thin air as Chris leaked it. So, but they don't know that. They think they're helping. They think they're getting the story out. People are there because they're interested in helping. So you do not have to be apologetic or on attack mode. Neither one you have to be on. It's live and let live. And you told us how blessed you are that your kids are normal. Well, good for you. But then maybe...
And he stands there just like this. And, what are you doing out here? And I'm like, holy crap. I said, I'm so sorry. We were looking for, and I told him what happened and told him the whole story. And he was,
I'm so sorry. Why are you being apologetic with Chris? But you're on attack with people who want to help. I don't get it.
Like, why wouldn't you just call law enforcement? I said, because I don't want to call law enforcement on a neighbor if they're out walking around. That's kind of rude. And he's like, well, you have no business driving around here. And started telling me in a very intimidating, very strong voice, I guess you would say, big tough, he's a big guy, kind of thing. That my son is missing and they've got police all around here looking. I said, yeah, no kidding. I know, I'm aware. I've been talking to him. Trust me, I know, I get it. And then he said there's a police, the heat sensor mobile unit things, I'm talking about, that can detect heat sensor and stuff. Well, they had one of those up in the top, hoping that if he came home, it would alert law enforcement that there was somebody walking around. Which I don't get that, because you've got families that are walking dogs anyway. So I was like, I'm so sorry. I kept apologizing to him, and he got really upset and, kind of said some things, and I was just trying to...
You see, this is how Chris gets by, because he is used to intimidating people. But, and people don't stand up for themselves. At all.
Calm him down and apologize. And my son's girlfriend was in the back, and she thought that if she rolled the window down and said, I am such and such, and I go to your son's school, that he would calm down. Even though I said, hey, I'm your neighbor, I live up there, everything's fine, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. I thought even me telling him I was his neighbor would calm him down. It's like he just glossed right over that. He didn't care. So she says, I'm such and such, and I go to school with your son. And he stops mid-sentence to me and said, oh, and got, stopped, looked at her, and said...
I'm sorry, guys. None of this is really interesting, right? But it is to her. That's why this is an hour and a half video where this woman... Oh. Let me see this.
I've never seen such an amazing cleaning
Another
product. It's
commercial.
just like magic. This incredible product.
People all over the country claiming that they were swingers.
Yeah, that rumor...
so bad.
Not true at all. About
not that I know.
Neighbor. Yeah,
not that I'm aware of.
How would you know?
And so that neighbor was getting harassed then, huh?
Bad. It was really bad. People just get so... I know that they want answers. I know everybody just really wants answers. Heavens, we want answers. We're living in the middle of this. We want answers. We want all this to go away. We want the truth be found. We want this to just be solved and be done with. But making things up And Alan, come into your own conclusion because you don't have it.
People might like, hey, I don't want to move to a neighborhood where a child went missing and is still missing. It has a lot of affects people, and not just the Proudfoots and Seth Rogers, but the whole neighborhood in general. It causes some bad things to happen with everyone, and man, I'm sorry that's happened.
I don't think anybody is going to be able to go anywhere until this
Oh,
is
wait,
resolved,
one more
because I
thing.
don't know anybody that would want to move into all this. Why would you want to move into a neighborhood where a kid just vanishes?
Oh,
You
wait.
might want to tell us so that we can kind of lock our kids up and be safe or whatever.
Oh, jeez. I skipped this one.
And I guess it's steps and everything that happened.
That type of deal? Or
Yeah.
Interesting, but nothing seems like their evidence and got something out of that possibly.
If they did, they're not telling us.
They're not. How's the neighborhood now?
I think it's getting better. I mean, I'm noticing a lot of neighbors are getting out more and walking dogs again and talking. And I think people think that we're all like huddled together talking about everything that's going on. And it's not like that at all. I think we're all just trying to stay out of it, trying to give them their space and kind of stay away from everything. And we just don't, I know for me, I don't want to get into their personal business. I just don't want to be that neighbor that's all like super nosy and thinks that she knows everything, because I don't know what happened. I don't understand. This kid did not just vanish. He just didn't vanish.
But does any neighbors think it was a kidnapping, or like think their children are in danger?
So that was the very first thing I asked on Wednesday when TBI came and sat down with me and talked to me. And I looked at her and I said, I get that you guys are being super quiet about this because it is still an investigation. However, if this kid was kidnapped, don't you think you might want to tell us so that we can kind of lock our kids up and be safe or whatever? And she, instead of her, and I guess is again part of the investigation, she said, well, you should always do that.
That's interesting. Yeah, they have a responsibility. I mean, if one of their theories is Sebastian got kidnapped, and they never said
now
Sebastian was kidnapped.
But there were no cars that came up their street and then left up their street and left. The only car that was ever seen was the one that was on Kellen, that parked on the corner of Stafford and Kellen for about 3 or 5 minutes, where the flashlights came towards it, backed up and left. And then the trash truck, and then Katie's SUV, and then the police, or then the school bus, and then the police. So there was no other car that ever drove up.
So, of course, that's how Sebastian got transported away. What a surprise. That car pulled up right there, and the flashlights went towards it, and one ran back into the house.
Effort. Was it a car that the lights went to? Or like an SUV or a car? Like, what type of vehicle was it?
I don't know. I don't remember. It just the words that where I was told was unidentified car. I don't know if it was an SUV.
They know, they can tell, but they don't want to tell us. And that's where I'm going to end it, people. So, to summarize it, there was no trash truck. It was a car that pulled up, and there were at least two lights coming towards it. So maybe there was a driver and 2 other people and a body. No scent was picked up. Sebastian could not have walked away. He couldn't have left the property on foot. The dog would have picked up on that. The dog was not able to do that. But something of Sebastian's, and likely whatever killed him or contributed to him dying, meaning the pills or whatever he was given so he would fall asleep, finally. When the dog was at the construction site, he jumped right into the pond. He jumped right in there because something of Sebastian's was in there, and I think it was probably some pills that had not properly equally dissolved yet. And I don't know if they took a water sample to figure out what exactly was in there. And if they had and examined it, maybe they're keeping it under wraps and they say, well, we still don't have enough to get a search warrant. Do we really want to do that? This is really uncomfortable because now we're going to have to open our files and show everybody in court how we messed up in the very beginning. And maybe the TBI told them, listen, guys, you don't want to do that. This is going to be a whole big mess. By the way, everybody's innocent until proven guilty. I'm not the judge. I'm not a member of the jury. Everything I'm stating here are my opinions and only my opinions. And I hope that this, which is overdue, has contributed to us narrowing down what happened. Now, please do not get sidetracked by anything unless it makes sense, unless they're really giving you some evidence or some really hardcore indicators. Because even though nothing may come out of this except the Netflix special, at least we have to know. And once you know, you can never unknow. I'm Mike the Man, and I'll see you next time.